Good morning, class. It is Kareen at 7 a.m. Thursday. I'm going to record your lecture, so I'm going to do a little bit about child and pre-adolescent and then a little bit about special needs. I'm going to stop this video of my beautiful morning face and we'll just get to it. So here we go. All right. So last time we were talking about parental influence on weight, and you got some class participation points for that. Now we're moving towards energy needs. As far as protein needs go, they need 0.95 grams per kilogram. So you can see that as children get older, they need a little bit less and less protein kind of with each age group. There are DRIs for the vitamins and minerals. You guys can look at those in your book if you want. And then fiber recommendations. The fiber recommendations are, 25 grams per day for ages 4 to 8 and 31 grams per day for ages 9 to 13. Good ways to meet them. Some of our healthy snacks would have good sources of fiber. Apples with the peel have good sources of fiber. Pears, broccoli, if you can get them to eat that. Whole grain cereals, etc. Soybeans, those are all great sources of fiber. Okay. So moving on to the next slide. Oh, this is lovely. Okay, so calcium goals. I almost took this out, but I left it here. And the reason that I left it is because calcium goals change during this age group, especially because this is where some of the peak bone mass is being developed. So it's also a big concern because children at this age kind of stop being as interested in milk as children at younger ages. And so during this time, it's really important that they get enough calcium. The average glass of milk has about 300 milligrams. So if they're having 3 glasses of milk or like a non-dairy fortified supplement, that would be equivalent to 900, and then the rest of their calcium they can probably get from other food sources. But this is one of the many opportunities for them to achieve peak bone mass. Fluid recommendations, another slide I almost took out, but I didn't. I think this slide is interesting. It's a publication from Harvard Health, and in the red are drinks that you should limit. So those are regular sodas, sports drinks, fruit drinks, and then yellow, I thought it was interesting that they put diet soda there. Diet soda has always been kind of controversial. So I thought this was a pretty interesting publication. I guess you could look at the pros of it as not having high fructose corn syrup and maybe not contributing to weight gain, but it's just an interesting thing that you would consider okay to give children. Sports drinks, only needed if children are sweating excessively or exercising, playing on a sport team for a prolonged period of time in heat. They're not needed on a regular basis. So your 1-hour baseball practice, you probably don't need them unless it's really hot outside. If you have too many sports drinks or concentrated sugars, it can cause diarrhea, kind of this dumping effect. Recommendations versus intakes. So we're doing pretty good with our macronutrients, carbohydrates, fat, protein. Overall calcium is low. Dietary fiber is way low. Remember I said 21 or 25 to 31 grams. And then sodium is really high. Sodium recommendations for 6 to 18-year-olds on average, they're consuming 3255 milligrams a day. And the goals are for 4 to 8-year-olds to have less than 1900 and 9 to 13-year-olds to have less than 2200. So way, way, way too much sodium. Also caffeine, recommended to have none. So way too much caffeine as well. Dietary supplements. Do you think children need them? So the answer is maybe some children do. I don't know if you remember previously for our last age group, when I wrote on the board all of the children who needed these things, it would be the same for this age group. I'm not sure if this will fly in. Oh, good, it will, or I'll have to write it. So children with anorexia, and at this age, it actually could develop into a true anorexia eating disorder, where at earlier ages, it was more just not wanting to eat. Children with any chronic diseases, children who suffer from neglect or abuse, and that could be intentional or unintentional. Children who participate in a program for managing obesity. The programs for managing obesity can be a bit more stringent with this age group versus earlier ages. Children on a vegetarian diet who aren't having dairy, children who are underweight, children with severe food insecurity, supplements may be beneficial. Oh, and I'll say, yeah, with the food insecurity, also any child with difficulty accessing food, maybe because of transportation or other things. So these children might benefit from, say, a multivitamin supplement or a fortified cereal in the morning or fortified breakfast bar or something along those lines. Common nutrition problems, iron. So iron deficiency is not as common in school-age children as it is in toddlers. For example, about 4.5% of 11-year-olds have iron deficiency versus 7% of toddlers. So it's not as prolific because the growth rate has slowed down significantly, and they're generally eating a wider variety of foods, and so they're able to get a lot of iron from diet. I included this picture because it's something really cool. This is called an ironfish, and this isn't used as much in the US, but it's mostly used in developing countries where there are high rates of iron deficiency. And so this little fish is made of iron, and while families are cooking, they can put this fish into any pot that they're cooking in, and the iron from the fish will dissociate into the food that they're cooking. So it's kind of the equivalent of using a cast iron skillet, except you don't have to have a cast iron skillet. You can be cooking in any sort of vessel. And so the iron in this fish also dissociates a little bit easier than the iron in a cast iron skillet. So it's a good way for people to be cooking rice or noodles or grains and have iron naturally fortify those grains with this iron fish. Overweight and obesity. So this is a huge, huge deal. Literally, we've talked about it. Every year the statistics change. I will not ask you the exact numbers, but the most recent data is from 2015, and it is 18.4%. So that's the most recent data that I could find per the CDC. And if you had to guess, would you think the trends are increasing or decreasing? They are definitely increasing. There are different trends within different ethnicities. Hispanics tend to have 26% obesity, Black or African American 24%, white female 18%, white male 9%. So those are just some example numbers. What do they look like? You should definitely know this. And it's not fat or chubby or obese. What children tend to look like who are overweight, they tend to be taller. They tend to have advanced bone density. They tend to look more sexually mature, and they may look older than they are. So those are important considerations when identifying childhood obesity. So many diseases associated with overweight and obesity, diabetes, just a few of them. And then Jessica's story, this is a really cool video about a girl who struggled with pediatric obesity and was able to make some progress. But I probably won't play that right now. Okay, let's get out of the annotate. I cannot get out of the annotate. Help, I'm stuck in this annotate version. Okay, there we go. So let's go to this next slide. I'm going to have to go back to annotate and erase. This tool on Zoom is not the best tool. Anyways, this is a picture of the United States. As you can see, you can click on this link right here and scroll over any state you want to get the most current obesity statistics. So that's really cool. And you can kind of see trends in this Bible Belt area where we do see higher percentages of adult obesity as well. This is an additional graph of trends. These ones are through 2015 to 2016, which, like I said, is the most recent data. The top is adult obesity and the bottom is youth obesity. So really, really high percentage of obesity, both with adults and youth 2 to 19 years old. They seem to be progressing at a slower rate than adults. Since 1999, they've had about 4% gain, where adults have had 9% gain. So adults are becoming obese at twice the rate of children. Children are really where we can have kind of the most substantial interventions. Another similar graph from the same years with more statistics. So these are kind of just fun facts. This one is by age group. Overall is in dark blue, 2 to 5 is in lighter blue, 6 to 11 in dark green, and 2 to 19 in light green. And then you have boys and girls. So you can see that girls kind of have this very sharp increase in obesity, where boys, as they transition from 6 to 11 to 12 to 19, actually even out. And that's an interesting point because that's when they're going through puberty and they lose a lot of their fat mass and they actually develop more muscle mass. Girls continue to gain fat in general because of hormonal preparation for being mothers. This is a similar graph, but just by ethnicity. So dark blue, non-Hispanic white, blue, non-Hispanic black, green, non-Hispanic Asian. You see lower rates for Asians overall, and then lighter green, Hispanic. Predictors of childhood obesity. There are so many predictors of childhood obesity. I discussed the BMI rebound phase in class. Remember, that's the normal increase in body weight that occurs after BMI has reached its lowest point. The lowest point's between 5 to 7 years, and the rebound generally occurs between 6 and 6.3 years. If the rebound occurs early, it's going to predict overweight later in life. Home environment is absolutely huge. What the home is like, is there healthy foods? Do you eat family meals? Are foods always available? Are they always on the table? Or do you eat and put them away? And then parental obesity, specifically maternal obesity, is the number one predictor of childhood obesity. So maternal obesity, you should definitely know, maternal obesity is the number one predictor of childhood obesity. Following maternal obesity, we have things like family income, lower cognitive stimulation, and then just general parental obesity. And parental obesity tends to double risk for childhood obesity. And there may be a combination of genetics as well as environmental factors. So I think it's both a nature and nurture kind of situation. Other predictors of childhood obesity, screen time. So screen time. The goal is to limit screen time to less than 2 hours or less. We are not meeting our goals. We're exceeding our goals by a lot. How can screen time contribute to childhood obesity? So it can lead to decreased energy expenditure. It can lead to, I don't think these are going to fly in. Oh, they did. Increased dietary intake. So a lot of times while people are watching TV, they're snacking and they're snacking mindlessly. And they might bring the whole bag of chips to the couch with a bag of cookies. It can disrupt sleep via blue wavelengths in devices such as iPhones or Android phones or television. Those can actually interfere with your circadian rhythm. Not to mention a lot of children will stay up late watching a TV show. There's advertisements for sweet foods, salty foods, snack foods, sugar sweetened beverages, 10 to 12 minutes an hour of advertisements for these foods. Are those going to make children go crave those foods and want to eat those foods? Absolutely. How many ads do you see for fruits and vegetables in your average Sunday cartoons? Generally none. So most people aren't sitting on the couch eating cucumber slices and watching the latest Netflix movie. Most people are eating something a lot higher in calories, sugar, and fat. And it just promotes sedentary behavior altogether. So it's not just that you're not exercising, but you're being more sedentary, which we know has adverse health outcomes. Predictors of childhood obesity. So fast food, more issues that I think would be pretty self-explanatory, but they eat more calories, they eat more fat, they eat more carbs, they eat more added sugar. What's the normal drink served at fast food restaurants? It's usually soda. Less fiber. Fast foods are generally very processed. Less fruits and veggies. Now you can get little kids meals at Subway or McDonald's, different restaurants where they do have things like milk and apple slices or maybe a small salad, but it didn't always used to be that way. And it's not the standard kids meal. You usually have to ask for it. Sweetened beverages. So sweetened beverages play a huge role in childhood obesity. 80% of children drink them daily. They're a source of nothing but added sugar. So no vitamins, no minerals, nothing. And they don't make you feel full. So then you go eat more later and the total calories generally add up during the day. These are some statistics regarding sweetened beverages just within the state. So this is California youth drinking 1 or more sugar sweetened beverages per day. And the good news with this particular graph is with 2 to 5-year-olds and 6 to 11-year-olds, it actually declined. With 12 to 17-year-olds, it did not, but that was good. Same thing up here, 2 to 5-year-olds, 6 to 11-year-olds. This is consuming 1 or more sugar sweetened beverage a day, had declined. And then this is by county in California. So that's pretty interesting as well. Overall, all of California had an 11% decline. Certain counties had increases, but the majority of counties had decreases. So that was something to celebrate. Psychological complications of obesity. So teasing, huge self-esteem issues with people saying negative things about body size. Depression. People are going to feel sad about being judged based on their body image. This can lead to all sorts of problems, doing poorly in school, absenteeism, feeling even more obsessed about their weight, maybe doing harmful diets or ending up with an eating disorder, not wanting to exercise because they feel that they're too big to exercise, not wanting to be in a swimsuit, not wanting to spend time at PE if they worry that they're not the most fit, things like that. So huge implications. Lower academic achievement, I mentioned that. Managing it. So what can we do? We're going to look at the growth charts. We're going to follow them really closely. We're also going to assess diet. It's going to be diet of the child and diet of the family because that usually reflects diet of the child. We're going to look at parental obesity as well as parental willingness to change, parental behaviors, parental willingness to be involved, parental identification of the fact that the child actually is obese versus that they're not. Many parents deny that their children are obese or overweight or are having kind of a health issue. So those are all things to consider when we're doing a evaluation for pediatric obesity treatment. Managing pediatric obesity. These are the same steps that we used before, so hopefully you remember these steps. I'm not going to write them, but I'll tell them to you in case you forgot. They're Prevention Plus, which was the very basic screening for pediatric obesity where perhaps a handout might be given or some diet recommendations at a primary doctor's office or a class physical. There's structured weight management where they'll have monthly visits with a dietitian. They're going to be encouraged to do 60 minutes of activity, and they might have kind of a very broad diet plan. Then there's multidisciplinary intervention, where they're going to have weekly visits with members of the healthcare team. They're going to have more structured eating plan to promote a negative calorie deficit. They're going to have exercise recommendations, and it's a pretty stringent focus. And then lastly is tertiary care, which we don't usually do tertiary care for this age group unless there are really, really, really extreme circumstances. But tertiary care could be going to a facility, going to an outpatient center, something like that. And so the overall goal is just to develop a healthy relationship with food. At this age, we have to be very cautious not to slow linear growth, because children are still growing vertically. So we don't want to severely restrict nutrients so much that they cannot grow and reach their full potential. We also don't want to develop self-esteem issues. We don't want to send them into an eating disorder. So we have to be really careful about our wording when we're talking about having healthy bodies. And I think that's kind of exactly the phrase we should use, is having a healthy body, not even mention weight or fat or anything like that, but maybe having a strong body, having a healthy body, doing things to make you feel good. Also have to pay attention to child's emotions. So many things to consider. Physical activity recommendations in school. So they are not as much as they should be by far. It's recommended 60 minutes per day in school-age children. Most school-age children do not get 60 minutes a day. So that's really sad. As far as activities that they can do, they can get involved in community sports. They can be active themselves with parents. They can join in child's play. They can limit screen time. They can set up games in the house. You don't have to have a backyard to be active. You can do all sorts of games. You can do obstacle courses on the couch or down the hallway or up the stairs. Parents can mimic active lifestyles themselves, walking to different places to shop, walking around the grocery store, going on hikes, going swimming, going surfing, riding their bike to work or to school. So many things parents can do. PE time has been greatly cut down in schools. I believe that's also contributing to childhood obesity, because more of the focus has been on students achieving these standardized test scores. And then one of the Healthy People 2020 objectives is to increase recess time and increase trips children take to school by walking and or bicycling. And so that kind of transitions to this next slide, which is this. So this is the walking school bus. And the idea with this is children, instead of riding the bus, walk. And they all walk together. They have some chaperones to make sure they're safe. There's a crossing guard, but they're having fun. They're getting activity. And then this is a school or a county that's done some really good things to help increase children's ability to ride their bikes to school. They've put this very wide bike lane. It has barriers on the side for parking, and parents can feel better about their children riding their bikes to school. So really, the community environment plays a big role in facilitating these kinds of things. I would be happy to have my child ride their bike to school on this type of a bike path. I live over by Laguna Lake and across the street from Laguna Junior High, where Erin works. And the city actually took a huge piece of sidewalk and made a bike path on the sidewalk that has 2 lanes like this one. And it's about a half a mile long, and it's on the route where lots of children ride and walk to school. So that was a good thing the city did to help improve children's ability to get outside. Places without sidewalks. My mom lives in Santa Barbara. She lives in one of the older neighborhoods in Santa Barbara. She also lives right next to a school, the Peabody School. There are no sidewalks anywhere in her neighborhood. They're very old colonial streets, and they're very narrow, and they still allow parking on both sides. So you literally have nowhere to walk except for in the street, and definitely nowhere to ride your bike. Other parts of Santa Barbara are better, but her particular neighborhood is not so much. So communities can really have a big impact as far as facilitating children's ability to go outside. such as building parks. San Luis Obispo has lots of parks. One of the parks we have is the skate park, and it has lighting till 10 at night. So that's a great place for children to go outside. Nutrition intervention. So you can see I am skipping a few slides, but that's okay. So the average time spent teaching nutrition education is 13 hours per year, but what they say is needed is actually 50 hours per year. And 50 hours are needed to actually facilitate behavioral change and give this foundation of nutrition education that will actually have good benefits. So we're way behind as far as providing nutrition intervention that meets the needs of our children. This is a very flattering picture of yours truly as a grad student. This was in 2007. And I had an opportunity to do this internship through Jamba Juice. It's called Jamba Juice Healthy Kids Internship. And we went out to different schools and taught nutrition lessons. And then we would do cooking demonstrations where the students got to taste like high fiber foods. In this particular one, we made like a rainbow stir fry with all sorts of different rainbow vegetables in it. So this was just a 1-hour class. We did it to all the schools in the county, but the students loved it. You know, they love having guest speakers in the class. They love learning about new things. They definitely love trying food. So we need more and more of this out there. Nutrition integrity in schools. So vending machines. Vending machines used to be everywhere in schools, everywhere. And they used to have sodas and chips in them. Now, if there are vending machines on campus, they have to have smart snacks in them. And what is a smart snack? I will tell you on the next page. Other things that schools have done good, so they're doing more rules Erin talked about as not using food as a reward or a punishment. Schools have to provide free access to drinking water all day long, so they have to have water fountains. And then food and beverage advertising within schools has been limited. So those are some good things that schools are doing. Smart snacks. So these are some examples of smart snacks versus not smart snacks. And I better write this part down. But what are the recommendations for a smart snack? So in order to be sold in school, a smart snack, a food has to qualify as a smart snack. So this is what Erin was talking about as foods being compliant or not. And these were some of the foods that I passed around and that you guys actually got to try. So it has to be 200 calories or less. It has to have 200 milligrams, drawing with this tool is hard, of sodium or less. 35% calories from fat or less. So this is calories, fat. So these are all or less. Less than 10% calories. So this is 35% total fat. And then 10% calories saturated fat or less. 0 trans fats. So 0 trans fats. And sugar has to be 35% or less by weight. So sugar has to be 35% or less by weight, which is good because when Corinne went to school, my favorite snack was a regular Coca-Cola, a full one, and a bag of Reese's Pieces. And it cost me $1 and I absolutely loved it. And I ate it every single day of high school. And I didn't even think twice because I knew nothing about nutrition. That was probably close to a 400 calorie snack, maybe 350 calories, primarily made of sugar and fat and very, very low nutrients. So that did not do my body any good at all. Now there are better options. So current snacks, it's got things like peanuts, light popcorn, low-fat tortilla chips, granola bars, etc. So we're doing a little bit better, but we're probably still not where we should be. We can't sell sodas in schools anymore because they don't comply with smart snack recommendations. So, yes. All right. Okay, nutrition in school. So National School Lunch Program. Erin came and talked to us about this. That was really good. Other things, the lunches are based on nutritional standards. Children who cannot pay can receive free lunch or reduced cost lunches. So every single child at a school should be able to get a lunch. They can either qualify for free, reduced price, or full price lunches. Lunch programs are nonprofits. They're accountable to the government. And they must meet 1/3 of the DRIs for the child's age. So I'm not going to write it, but 1/3 of the DRIs for the child's age. This is a cool video about plant-based foods in Santa Barbara. So let's see if this will play for us. This was something that one of my students shared with me. Why can't we hear him? Here we go. This is really cool.
School district offered plant-based vegan meals for all of its students. And News Channel 3's Elise Martinez tells us if that food passed the taste test.
The chefs inside the kitchen at Monroe Elementary School are busy preparing lunch. Today, kids get to choose from a pulled pork sandwich or a beef tostada, which isn't actually real meat.
Let them decide what they'd like based on their taste, which is what kids do anyway.
What's going on this tostada is a non-GMO soy, which mimics the texture of meat. It's made by Hungry Planet, based in Santa Barbara.
Hungry Planet is a great bridge between the meat eater and the non-meat eater, and it does so much good on the plates.
Most of the food prepared in Santa Barbara Unified School District kitchens is made from scratch without artificial ingredients. But the district wanted to take healthy eating a step further and is now one of the first to offer a plant-based vegan option every day of the year. And for most kids, the food passes the taste test.
I think it's nice because it actually kind of tastes like real meat. It's actually pretty good.
The initiative was so successful, the Santa Barbara Unified School District will likely bring Hungry Planet foods back into the cafeteria next year. In Santa Barbara.
All right, so that's pretty cool. See how I can get back to this. All right, so very cool things happening. If you want to get involved in school lunch, it's a fantastic way for you guys to really make a big difference in children's lives and really our environment. So choosing low impact foods like a meat alternative can really have some substantial environmental impacts, especially imagine if that was done at every school across the nation. These you do not have to memorize, but these are the recommendations for the different food groups in schools. I just put them here for your reference. And then National School Breakfast. So National School Breakfast is a fantastic program as well. And they find that children who do eat breakfast do way better in schools. School breakfast programs reduce tardiness and absenteeism, and they increase academic performance. So students do much, much better throughout the day. They also help with behavior because students have food in their bellies. And school lunch provides 1/3 of the child's DRI for age. School breakfast has to provide 25%. So 25% of a child's DRI for age. This is not National School Dinner Program. So there is also a school dinner program. It is not national, but it is done in some schools. And the thought with this is the children who really, really need access to the school lunch and the school breakfast tend to be the free or reduced price children. And often for those children, the school breakfast and the school lunch is the only meal that the children get to eat during the day. And so they are getting sent home hungry. And then you're sending the child home hungry where they might not have a meal that night. And you're also expecting that child to do their homework and go out and exercise and be active, not just be sedentary. So by giving them school dinner, you can really enhance their ability to be active, to continue learning after the school hours done, and just overall improve their health and reduce food insecurity. So some schools, this is one in Arizona, are doing school dinner programs. Summer food service program. These are fantastic too. In districts where 50% or more of the children are from low income houses, all of the children get free summer lunch. So that's really great. The reason this is important is because parents still have to work over summer for the most part. And so if a child is only getting a free meal, you know, three quarters of the year or 2/3 of the year, that means they're going hungry all summer. And so this gives children an opportunity to come to the school campus, get a lunch. Sometimes they're hot, sometimes they're bagged, and have a meal during the summertime when the parents are at work or where they might not be getting a meal. So it's year-round coverage. In conclusion, I did not talk about lactose deficiency. You can read about that on your own a little bit. So, you're going to be mad at me, but I want to talk about special needs, and I promise you that I will be brief with that. It is a brief presentation as well. So, really quick, we'll talk a little bit about special needs. Right here, this is Kareen's global nutrition homework. Last quarter, I traveled to Nicaragua and I took some pictures of where I was there. I traveled to a small island in Lake Nicaragua. This was the grocery store, so you can see some fruits and veggies, but also a lot of pastries and processed foods. This is another one with some fruits and veggies, so that was good. This is standard transportation in Nicaragua, so people walk everywhere or they ride motorcycles, and you'll have infants, toddlers, the entire family on a motorcycle. This is somebody's house and farm. This is their pig tied up. This is a man riding his bike carrying firewood. So they do a lot of very, very manual labor. They burn a lot of calories. You do not see a lot of obesity on this island. You actually see more undernutrition. This is a man carrying plantains. Plantains are one of their main food sources. And then this was a school that I visited. The school was 2 miles up a dirt road. It did not have any electricity. It didn't have running water. It was 2 single classrooms. These were the students at the school. That's me right there. And what we did on this trip is I went with a bunch of people. We did a race, and then we raised money for the students, and we raised $1,700. We were able to buy them sports equipment like soccer balls, and then the rest of the money was donated to the school itself. And the teacher was so happy. He said, "Oh, this is so good. I can afford to buy a lock on my door," because he didn't have a lock to the schoolroom. And people were coming in and stealing the school supplies, which these are the school supplies. They are old books, things of crayons, and that is literally it. So it was a really, really sad situation. This was cool. This was the winner of the race that we did. It was a female. She won the entire race. She beat all the men. And so it was really empowering for her to talk to the girls at the school and kind of give them hopes and dreams that they can do whatever they want when they grow up. Okay, so pre-adolescent nutrition with special needs. Let's just get started with this. I promise I will go fast. So children with special needs. There are a lot of children with special needs. The most common ones, yeah, I didn't think that that was going to fly in. So the most common ones are asthma. Beautiful writing, right? Asthma, ADHD, learning disabilities, which maybe could be clumped under ADHD, but learning disabilities, and speech problems. So these are some of the main issues that we see. And they may or may not be nutrition related. Some of them do have nutrition implications and some do not, but asthma, ADHD, learning disabilities, and speech. So, wow, I cleared that successfully. Okay, nutrition implications. So these are things we've talked about before, but we need to consider their body composition, just like in toddlers and preschool age children. We need to consider, are they muscle, are they fat, how many calories are they burning? Protein losses. A child may lose protein if they have a big burn, or maybe if they're spilling protein into their urine with diabetes out of control. Maybe they're having high fluid needs. If they're losing fluid, they can lose fluid via diarrhea, excessive drooling. You saw some of the children with cerebral palsy. They drool a lot. They actually lose fluid that way. Children with cerebral palsy, children who are non-ambulatory do tend to get constipation a lot. So fiber is really important, but with fiber, you definitely need water too. And then medication use can make all these things worse. So steroids are constipating. Other meds can cause weight gain. Many meds can cause dehydration, fluid imbalances. And then other things to consider, these children, especially children with learning disabilities, ADHD, autism spectrum, cerebral palsy, they may have strong preferences and strong dislikes for food, and they may refuse foods a lot or be extremely picky eaters. Energy needs. So in these children, since they're so unique, the best way to measure energy is actually indirect calorimetry. And what indirect calorimetry measures is oxygen intake and CO2 output. And then those numbers can be put into an equation to estimate energy needs. So this is a picture of a child doing indirect calorimetry right here. Protein needs. There are certain children who are going to need more or less protein. So protein, for children with diabetes, it's going to be the same. For children with cystic fibrosis or burns, it's going to be higher. Burns require a lot of protein for healing. Cystic fibrosis is associated with a lot of absorption issues, so definitely higher. PKU, you guys met a PKU patient, so exciting. She needs low protein because she can't metabolize phenylalanine, which is an amino acid. And then fat needs will depend on condition. Children with cystic fibrosis have major fat malabsorption, and so they might benefit from things such as medium chain triglycerides. Okay. This drawing tool is just not the best. Okay. Nutrient needs of special children. Okay, nutrient needs of special children. Vitamins and minerals. So vitamins and minerals are generally recommended to children with special needs. The problem with most of them is most of them come in a chewable form. And many children with special needs have trouble chewing and swallowing. And so instead, you can get like a liquid form of vitamins like this. Example diagnoses that may need vitamins: cystic fibrosis, they may need vitamin A, D, E, and K. Spina bifida, they often take high doses of vitamin C. And there's many other issues where children might need vitamins. Fluid needs. I discussed drooling, excessive diarrhea, losses because of a surgery that could cause higher fluid needs. Certain medications that dehydrate you could cause higher fluid needs. And the thing with children with special needs, or children in general, is children don't detect thirst as well as adults. And so especially a child with special needs, they may not even be able to communicate thirst. So it's up to an adult to monitor, are they drinking water? Are they urinating? Are there wet diapers? Some of these children do still wear diapers at this age. What's kind of the intake and the output of fluid? Growth assessment. So we've talked about growth charts before, but they don't always apply to children with special needs. For example, a BMI or a height chart won't work with this child who has cerebral palsy because her maximum height is going to appear a lot smaller, and that could actually make her BMI look big, but clearly she's very skinny, but it's because of this extreme curvature of the spine. And that's very, very common, that children can have deformities in their skeletal system. This girl has a very severe scoliosis that's going to interfere with measurement of height. Children with scoliosis sometimes wear a brace to correct that, and they tend to have lower activity levels. So when we do their weight, they tend to have lower musculature and more fat. Things that we should pay attention to on the growth charts: plateaus in weight, sudden weight changes, weight loss or weight gain, weight loss when they're sick, and unexplained weight gain. That could be due to medication side effects, excessive supplement use, etc. So there are multiple special growth charts available. Some of them are for Down syndrome, and some of them are for things like Prader-Willi. So this is a special growth chart for children with Down syndrome. And children with Down syndrome tend to be shorter and have low musculature. So if we plotted them on regular growth charts, they might appear to have high BMIs, short stature, and they just wouldn't really fit on a regular growth chart. So we've created special ones particularly for them. Body composition. So kind of what I was hinting to, but the body composition in special needs children is not necessarily the same as the body composition of active children without special needs. Low weight sometimes indicates that they don't have a lot of muscle. Low height might indicate these skeletal deformities or maybe genetic issue. The muscle size is really important because if children have low muscle size, on a growth chart, it might look like they're gaining inadequate weight, but really they do have adequate fat stores. They're just maybe never going to develop the same musculature that a child without special needs is going to develop. So it's not necessarily that they're not eating enough, but their weight might continually look low because muscle is very dense. If children are taking growth hormone, sometimes children do take growth hormones, such as in cystic fibrosis or even Down syndrome, it can cause a big increase in height and weight on the growth chart. And so you would always want to indicate on the growth chart where that has begun and when that has ended so that you can explain for that big change on the growth chart. Possible feeding and eating related challenges for children with special needs. So 70% have feeding problems. So 70% of these children with special needs have feeding problems. And so it is a very significant deal. I have heard higher than that, but for purposes of this class, I would stick with 70%. Some of their feeding problems include difficulty accepting foods, chewing foods, or safely ingesting sufficient foods to meet their nutritional needs and growth. Other problems, they may have are these going to fly in? I hope that these are going to fly in. Let's see. Yes, they're going to fly in. So they have self-feeding skills lower than their chronological age, meaning maybe they can't use utensils, they can't drink from an open cup, they can't feed themselves. Maybe the feeding takes a long time due to children getting worn out, children getting tired, children losing attention. Maybe the food is spilled or lost or spit up. When we watched the video of cerebral palsy, that child did have a lot of food that spilled from the mouth. And then additional things could involve tantrums, they could involve choking, They can involve specific food preferences, etc. So those would all be considerations. This is a video. I think we'll watch this video, and it's really good. So let's bring this up.
For all.
Hold on. I need to. Where am I going? Okay, here we go. Get rid of this.
Nice one.
James is a 9-year-old boy
Nice one. 19 pins I got.
who loves numbers of all kinds.
5.
Is that any record?
No.
My name is Nancy Burrows, and I'm James's mom. That's pretty neat writing. I'm impressed.
It's Macy, just like in Alice Way.
Mhm. So James has hypergraphia, which is sort of this compulsion to be writing all the time.
I want more, Mom.
He inevitably ends up writing with his right hand and leaving him only his left hand to eat with, which made for very messy eating.
500 times a day, I am sweeping the floor. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I sweep the floor.
We're starting to see that it's becoming more of a social issue now. You know, he's going to be 9. You can't be eating like a 2-year-old anymore.
Are you eating off the floor? What is that about?
We feel like from a social perspective, it's very important to kind of, now's the time to get a handle on the eating stuff that's going on. All right, we're done. We're done. The iPhone is a huge motivator for James. He's no fool, so he's sort of shifted his interest to the iPad now from the iPhone. What we came up with is this system where it's sort of an offshoot of our desire to restrict his amount of screen time. So we have this card. It's like a puzzle. It looks like an iPhone. There's 15 pieces on it, and each piece represents a minute. He can lose minutes off of that 15-minute period. But we're focusing on using it right now for eating.
No fingers using fork. No getting up and looking at the clock.
You know what to do. Just remember when we start, if you don't use your fork, you're going to lose a minute on the iPad. Okay? Thank you. Okay. How about some pasta? Get that finger away, please. Use your fork. James.
No.
James.
I just got a warning.
Okay, well, I'm in charge of this paper, not you.
No.
James. No, you don't write while we're eating. And the other change that we made, which was huge, is that during dinner, he is not allowed to have any writing materials anywhere near him.
She stole the pen.
Oh, man. For me to say to him, you lost 5 minutes, is very different from him hearing the sound. I think that James has trouble with abstract concepts. Okay. And so this is a very concrete representation of exactly what's going on. Uh-oh. Why did that happen? And when your hand would be in that bowl for every piece of pasta. That was great.
5 points.
James, do you hear me? I really like how you're eating your pasta with the fork.
What time is it? I want to sleep.
If you get up, you're
Really
going to lose a minute.
quickly.
Okay, but you're going to lose a minute if you get up.
27.
Dude.
27.
Look. 6
minutes.
It used to be that when James was eating a bowl of pasta, if there were 20 bites, he put his hand in the bowl 20 times. I've noticed since we started doing this that his awareness of what he's doing seems to be much more heightened. How come you get to play this tonight?
35. Because they did a great job on eating. I love it.
All right. So I really like that video. I like that it showed a child getting distracted at meals. I liked that it showed a child eating below his age range. He was totally capable of eating his age, but instead he would stick his hands in the bowl. It did take a long time to eat. And I liked the way the mother rewarded that child or encouraged that child by saying, I really like the way you're eating your pasta with a fork, because that message is talking about how he's eating, not the quantity of what he's eating. So she didn't say like, good job clearing your plate. She just said, wow, I really like the way you're eating, or that you're not using your hands. That was a really good positive encouragement. Okay, I know you guys are going to be heartbroken right now, but I think I'm going to stop here for now because it's been close to an hour, which I doubt you have more attention for that. And my son is awake. So we'll finish up this Wednesday, and I hope you guys have a great week. Pay attention to this. You will see some of these things again. Thanks. Bye.